talk about? Any suggestions?
Krishna.
Huh?
Krishna.
Krishna. Who's that? Okay, we all know who Krishna is. Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, the cause of all causes, and the only feature worth worshipping. Okay, we all know who Krishna is. I was thinking of speaking about the importance of reading Prabhupada's books. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I spoke about that yesterday, and I think my own were pretty good. There's a verse, actually. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 25. Ye lila amrivine, kaya yada anapane, tupa bhaktira dupala jivane. Yada eda bandupane, upalilita tanumane, asagaya karane, natana. Men become strong and stout by eating sufficient food grains. But the devotees who simply eat ordinary grains, but do not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, gradually become weak and fall down from the transcendental position. However, if one drinks but a drop of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom, and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance. This is from Bhagavad. In Prabhupada's purport, all the devotees connected with this Krishna conscious movement must read all the books that I have translated. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain eternal blissful life of transcendental pleasure. Om Gyantimirandasya Kinachana Salakaya Chaksu Undalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvise Sasunyavari Pasyatya Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Prabhupada is using this verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita to make a very important point. We chant Hare Krishna, that's very important. In fact, that is the Yuga Dharma. We purify our minds, we purify our hearts. We've experienced transcendental upliftment and pleasure. But there's something that goes along with that, and that is reading Prabhupada's books, or hearing about Krishna's pastimes. This is what we say part 2 of a 2-part program. In the sense that the holy name is like Krishna, and the pastimes of the Lord are like Srimati Radharani. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna in one. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Mahiyoni. Mahaprabhu is Krishna with the mood of Radharani. So he's the complete absolute truth in one person. The absolute truth is of two natures, the object and the subject. The subject of worship and the object for worshiping. And that manifests in Krishna's internal mood, and he manifests that as Srimati Radharani. She becomes his counterpart, where she's not different than him, but at the same time different. Why? For the sake of exchanging loving pastimes. So that loving pastime is, we say, reaches its pinnacle of perfection in Mahaprabhu. He is Krishna when he has Radharani's love, or her mood of love, of devotion. So when we talk about the process of devotional service, we have to carefully understand that it's not only chanting the holy names of the Lord, which is the Yuga Dharma, most important, but it's also hearing about Krishna. To hear about Krishna means to awaken love for Krishna, because Krishna is all attractive. His names, his forms, his qualities, his activities are all attractive. And because he has that quality of all attractiveness, these things bring our consciousness away from material attachments, material activities, and into spiritual transcendental consciousness. So these pastimes are found in Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada wrote so many books. In fact, there's more than 80 books that Prabhupada translated. And these are various forms of, but the essence, as Prabhupada mentions here, is much Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and Nectar of Devotion. These four reign supreme amongst all the scriptures that are available in Gaudiya Vaishnavas, because Srimad Bhagavatam is the composite in a very, what we say, systematic way of the transcendental form of Krishna. The transcendental body of Krishna is correlated or corresponds, or the different parts of the transcendental form of the Lord corresponds to different cantos in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the first and second canto are his lotus feet, and then his thighs, his calves, the thighs, all the way up to 10th canto is Krishna's smiling face, which is Krishna in Vrindavan. So as we approach Bhagavatam, we're approaching Krishna in his transcendental form. So Bhagavatam being not different than Krishna, when we take the opportunity to read and absorb ourselves in the reading and try to understand that, we actually come in contact with the absolute truth in a very direct way. And it just nourishes our transcendental mind. These Bhagavatams are, what we say, they are Amalam Purana. Amalam means pure. You can't find anything material in Srimad Bhagavatam. Whereas if you compare other scriptures, in different Vedic scriptures, you'll find a mixture of spiritual principles and teachings and activities, along with some material considerations. But not in Bhagavatam, that's why it's the purest of all the scriptures. It's called, it's also called Paramahansa Samhita. In other words, the greatest souls find great pleasure in reading Srimad Bhagavatam and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam says it himself, Nasta Prayeshu Abrajeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. I render regular attendance in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and along with rendering service to the spiritual master, then everything inauspicious, all of our attachments, all of our, what we say, the dirt of material association becomes washed away, practically destroyed, simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is very important. And it's not only important, it's considered to be a regulative principle. One must hear Bhagavatam, the other. So we can read it, we can hear Prabhupada speak it on his different recorded lectures, or even if we can hear it from our spiritual masters. But Bhagavatam must be the subject matter, because Bhagavatam is pure. And even if it becomes a little hard to understand, still simply by the sound vibration that it emanates, because transcendental sound is purifying, even if you don't understand it. Even understand it, it has a certain purifying element to it, because it's not made of anything material. It's been given power by the pure devotees, and it's coming from Krishna himself. Krishna Bhagavatam is Krishna in his different manifestations, but it has his personality. Just like it says in the very beginning of Bhagavatam, the question was asked, well, now Krishna has gone. Krishna had left the world. He was here for 125 years performing his pastimes in Mathura and Vrindavan and in Dwarka, and then finally ending up on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. After Krishna disappeared, everyone was thinking, now what do we do? Krishna's gone. Where is religion to be found? Well, Bhagavatam answers the question that that same element of pure religious principles, which was brought by Krishna when he was personally present, remains present within the pages of Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam actually is Krishna manifest for the whole world to associate with directly, although he's personally, apparently gone from the purview. He's been gone for 5,000 years, but still he remains within the pages of Bhagavatam. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore Prabhupada is giving some very direct instructions. It says that if we don't take the advantage of these books, and Prabhupada, how much energy and time and effort did he do to make these books available to us in different languages? Prabhupada had a full schedule. When you hear about Prabhupada's schedule, you become like stunned. You think, how is it possible anyone can do this? Should I mention his schedule? Yes. Oh, it's really quite scary. In the sense that if you try to do it, you won't. I would start, Prabhupada would take a rest at night. And he would also say, he said, I will always take rest between 10:30 and 11 every night. And then he would get up at 12. So he would just do a little resting for an hour. And then he'd begin his translations of Bhagavatam, reading the scriptures given by the previous acharyas, understanding what they're saying, and then adding his realizations, and that was called the Bhaktivedanta purports. Prabhupada wanted to give the Western mindset something that they could understand, at the same time keeping the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam's message. He made it westernized so we could a little bit. Because for us, the way it was given according to the tradition in Vedic India, it's very technical, very hard to understand. So Prabhupada wanted to broke it down. And so that was a real meditation for Prabhupada. And he would do that from about 12 o'clock to maybe about 4 in the morning. And then around that time he would chant japa for a while, and then he would go out on the morning walk. And his senior devotees would join him, and Prabhupada would discuss different subject matters. Prabhupada used his morning walk because when he was ill in 1967, he had to go to the hospital, and he had his third heart attack. That one was the one that almost took his life. Actually, astrologers said that one was, he was supposed to die at that time. But Prabhupada said, I prayed to Krishna, my mission is not even started, please give me more time. So Krishna gave me more time. So Prabhupada was in the hospital, and then he was visited by one Jewish doctor, and the doctor said, your teacher, he prays too much. He needs to exercise. So Prabhupada took that seriously and began his morning walks. So every day he would go for at least a few mile walk with his devotees, and they would talk. And Prabhupada walked fast. I was on one of his walks. Sometimes us young devotees would be jogging and Prabhupada would be walking. Prabhupada was so fast, it was amazing. Couldn't figure out where he got all that speed from. And then Prabhupada did that, and then after he would wind up at the temple, wherever he was, and then he would sit on the Vyasasana. And then they would offer Guru Puja to Prabhupada, and then he would give class, Srimad Bhagavatam class, and then he would retire to his quarters, and then he would take breakfast. His breakfast consisted of some fruit, some chickpeas, some fried cashews, and rasgula or sandesh. That was his breakfast. And on cold days, when it became very cold, he would ask for halava. He said, these days we need a little grain. And sometimes they would make utma. And then Prabhupada would take an hour rest. So he would rest after breakfast, and then after an hour he would get up and devotees would give him his massage. So he'd get a massage for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And Prabhupada, they would be pushing on Prabhupada's body, and Prabhupada would be like this. Prabhupada would say harder, harder, harder. They're pushing with all their might. Prabhupada's not moving. Not moving at all. They would want to, he's like a tree. And while he was getting his massage, he would be answering letters. They would read the letters that the devotees read, and Prabhupada would respond, and then somebody would be typing out Prabhupada's response. Prabhupada did his letter response during that time. Or if there wasn't any letters, he would just talk about Krishna while he was giving his massage, or something interesting. So after that was over, then Prabhupada would take he'd take a bath, and they would give him fresh clothes, and then he would get ready for lunch. And his lunch consisted of the same thing every day. Chapatis, rice, dal, and sabji. And they had a cooker. It was 4 tiers. Maybe you've seen it. It's actually in one place. And the rice was on the top, I think. No, the dal was on the top. So you heat it underneath, and it cooks all 4 things at once, except for the chapatis. 3 things actually. And then they make chapatis separate. And it would Prabhupada's lunch. So after lunch, he would take another rest of another hour, and then he would get up, and then he would meet people throughout the evening, or go to programs, or just preach. He would preach to all the way up into the evening. And then in the evening he would take some hot milk. Sometimes he would give them some porridge. One time the devotees a lot of devotees got into the health trip. So they weren't eating no white sugar. They even took the white sugar out of the kitchen. Prabhupada said, Krishna likes sugar, put it back. So 2 of the devotees were really staunch on their no sugar thing. Prabhupada was sitting, they were sitting with Prabhupada, bring me some sugar and some porridge. So he had a big bowl of sugar, porridge, and he was dipping the porridge into the sugar and eating it like that, talking to those devotees. He wanted to make a point. He wasn't against these health things, but he didn't want Krishna to be healthy too. He wanted Krishna likes all these very healthy things. And then after, he would take a little evening meal, and sometimes he would speak with the devotees for a while, and then he would get ready for rest. So that was his schedule. And he followed that schedule everywhere in the world, wherever he was, every day. So it never mattered if he was traveling. Wherever he traveled to, at that time when he landed, he picked up his schedule according to that time of day. So if it was time for massage, he would do that. If it was time for lunch, he'd do that. So he always followed the schedule. He never broke that. Sometimes he had to break it because of programs, but usually he always followed that completely. And Prabhupada was very strict, very strict. So every night from 12 o'clock, usually 12:30 onward, when we do this Bhakti Vedanta purports. That's why we have these wonderful books. That was Prabhupada's meditation. And nobody was awake at that time. And Prabhupada had what we call, use the word, pin drop silence. So quiet, so Prabhupada could just absorb himself. So if there was any noise, he would make sure, okay. One time he was in India, and if there was any reason for he needed anything, his brahmachari assistant would sleep right outside his door. So he would ring his bell if he needed it. So one night he rang his bell and his assistant came in, had his obeisance, he's half asleep. And Prabhupada said, "You hear that sound?" And the devotee says, "No." Prabhupada said, "Listen." "You hear it?" "No." "Listen. Go find where that sound is coming from." So the devotee finally heard it, and he traced it out. It was a fan, because in India the fans go click, 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 click. You've been to India with those fans? Sometimes they go click, 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 click. So Prabhupada heard that clicking sound of the fan, and he didn't like that. That was disturbing his meditation. And his devotee couldn't even hear it. So this was how he wanted that, like, okay, I'm going to make these purports the best possible, no disturbances, no sounds. So that's what he put into making these books happen. So he wanted us to read these books. He told us in 1976 when he was in Mayapur, he said, "You're out distributing my books, but you don't read them." And he says, someone comes up to you, "My dear sir, my dear madam, what is in the books?" And you say, "We don't know. But our teacher, he writes, and we sell, that's all." So Prabhupada didn't want that. He said, "I wrote the books for the devotees. I want the devotees to read this and get nourished with this transcendental knowledge, and especially Krishna's Leelas, Gaura's Leelas, Ram Leela, so many Leelas of Krishna in his different incarnations." So this verse is somewhat fundamental, and it says that if we don't take time and read these books, all the books that listed, then we will miss the opportunity of transcendental pleasure. We'll simply return, because the intelligence is a very important part of the living entity's existence. We have our senses, we have our body, we have our mind, and we also have our intelligence. Intelligence needs to be activated. If the other intelligence is simply activated for material activities, then the intelligence doesn't grow in the right way. So intelligence has to be used to hear about Krishna's pastimes and become inspired. It purifies the mind and it awakens the intelligence, so it's very important. So you might say, "Well, I don't like to read so much." Well, that's all right. Then listen to tapes. Listen to you can do that also, because that knowledge is coming in the same, different media, but at the same time it is the essential principle of receiving transcendental knowledge.